If you want to buy a dive watch for $550, what would be your wish list for specifications that you would want at that price? Think about that for a little bit, because in a minute here I'm going to give you the specs list for the watch that we're looking at today, which is the Axios Ironclad. And for me, this has pretty much everything I could hope for and more at this $550 price range. Let's take a look. Hey everyone, this is Dave. Welcome back to Just the Watch, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Axios Ironclad. And this is an incredibly well-spec'd watch. It has pretty much everything I could hope for at this price range. It comes in at a great 40mm diameter size, so really easy to wear on a wide range of wrists. And while it definitely draws heavy inspiration from the Rolex Submariner, I wouldn't quite call it a full-out homage. I think they definitely started with that as sort of their template and then went and tweaked some things that I think definitely gives it some of its own character as well. So even if you're not a big fan of homages, I think this is one that still might appeal to you. And again, it's definitely something that I think I really appreciate the sort of differences that they took from the Submariner in the way that they designed the watch. Now, I do want to thank Axios for sending this watch in for review. It is one that I get to keep after the review is done, so big thanks to them. But please keep that in mind as I give the review of the watch. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and see what you're getting here. All right, the first thing I want to highlight on this watch is that it is an absolute spec monster. Let's just run through it real quick. Inside, you're getting a Swiss Selita SW200 automatic movement, a nice double-domed AR-coated sapphire crystal, absolutely insane lume with actually 3 different kinds of lume. So this has C3, BGW9, and X1 lume on it in different parts of the dial. So you're getting multicolored lume, including the X1 grade lume, which is the top-of-the-line Swiss superluminova that lasts forever. You are getting a ceramic bezel. You're getting a full stainless steel case, including a solid stainless steel link bracelet with solid end links, a very nice milled clasp, and everything, the bracelet and the case, have a anti-scratch coating also applied to it that keeps it in really good shape. I've had it for a couple weeks now and haven't managed to get a scratch on, which is really unusual. I tend to be kind of rough when I'm shooting watches and filming them for the reviews, especially with the outdoor shots. This one hasn't picked up a single scratch yet. And to top it all off, you're getting 500 meters of water resistance. I think the Selita SW200 movement is a great choice at this price range. It is a Swiss movement. It has a 28,000 beats per hour, slightly higher beat rate movement, so it gives it a very nice smooth sweep to the second hand. You know, with your most of your entry-level Seiko divers and things, they go at about 6 ticks per second. This one goes at 8 ticks per second, so very smooth sweeping second hand. Just looks great on the wrist. Another cool thing that I like about the SW200 movement is that it has kind of a snap-over date change. So with a lot of more entry-level movements, you've got this kind of weird thing between like 11 and 1 in the morning where the date is changing and it takes, 45 minutes to an hour for it to fully flip over. This one, you can start to see it change around, when you get into that 11 o'clock hour, but it actually has kind of a snap over at right around 12 o'clock, which is really kind of cool, and it's something, again, that you don't see in sort of the lower entry-level movements. So some of those slightly higher-end features I think are kind of cool in this movement. Dimensions on the watch are also great. Again, I mentioned before that 40mm diameter. It also comes in at 14mm thickness, which wears pretty well, and I think that's really acceptable for a 500-meter dive watch with a domed sapphire crystal. To get it down to 14mm thick, I think is actually pretty good, and it feels really comfortable on the wrist. So all in all, some of the best specs I could hope for at this price range. Let me know in a comment down below if you think that there's anything missing on here so far, but again, for me, this was kind of checked off everything I could hope for in this $550 price range. Now, I usually don't show off the packaging that a watch comes in, but in this case, I think it's a really nice extra that they gave you, and there's kind of a little bit extra more to this. So this is actually a really nice watch roll. This, it's kind of a leather material. I don't know if this is a PU leather or imitation leather or actual genuine leather. Either way, it's a nice, thick, solid feeling material that is useful as a watch roll. And then inside they're giving you these 2 slots, so you are getting a Tropic rubber strap, which is a great upgrade. They're not just kind of cheaping out and giving you a little NATO strap. They're giving you a nice Tropic rubber strap that we'll look at later. And then you get the watch here on the stainless steel bracelet. But this is something, you know, these are things that you will actually use and, you know, hang on to. So it's some really nice extras that they've given you here. All right, but let's go ahead and take a look at the watch, which is kind of what we're really after here. So for dimensions, you're getting 40 millimeters across. You're getting 46 millimeters lug to lug and 20 millimeter lug openings, so pretty easy to find straps that'll fit this. And then you're getting about 14 millimeters from the top of that domed sapphire crystal to the case back. So you can see you are getting a signed screw down crown as well. Now the design of the watch, as you can see, is heavily influenced, I think, by the Rolex Submariner. But they have taken some of their own sort of touches and design cues as well. So it's I wouldn't quite call it a full homage. It's sort of, you know, sort of in a gray area there. Let's talk about that from that angle for a little bit. Some of the things I think this is very similar to the Submariner. One, just the case finishing. You're getting this polished side of the case, brushed tops, you know, and just the case shape, and then, you know, even the bracelet, kind of this oyster style bracelet as well. All really, yeah, again, draw some heavy inspiration from the Submariner. But the dial is where things start to get a little bit different. And I think the biggest deviation from the Sub design is the handset that they chose, which is very unique. I haven't seen this handset on anything else. Kind of reminds me of like a cathedral style hands where you're sort of getting these sort of three sections. But yeah, they're not quite like any other handset that I've seen before. The name of the watch is the Ironclad, so it's named after an old iron warship or metal warship, one of the first metal warships that were there, which you can see on the case back of the watch as well, which is also really well done. It's a very deeply engraved case back, which has a lot of sort of depth to it, so it's really fun to look at from different angles. But when I saw this case back, it kind of reminded me of the shape of the hand, so I kind of feel like the hands in some ways sort of echo that sort of warship shape to them. And it's just a really neat touch. I really like the handset. One of my least favorite things about the Submariner is the Mercedes-style hands. I know those can be kind of polarizing, and so I love that they didn't copy that aspect of it, that they went and chose their own handset. I think that's a really cool look. Other differences, the indices on here, so especially at the 12, 3, and 9, these are a little bit different as well. You know, it's not like just a normal triangle. They're kind of trapezoids, and if you look at the finishing close enough, they're kind of like these little ramps where they're definitely applied. You've got that metal border around them, but the bottom of the indices that sort of touches the dials is missing sort of that bottom border. There's no metallic edge on the bottom of it, so it's kind of an interesting design there as well. Another noticeable absence is you're not getting the 3 o'clock Cyclops date like you would normally get on a Submariner, but you are getting a 6 o'clock color match date, so it's a black date on the black dial. I actually would have preferred to see like a bordered white date to have it kind of stand in as a 6 o'clock marker. As it is, it's, you know, it blends in with the dial really well, so it almost looks like there is no 6 o'clock marker there. For me, I think I would have liked to have seen a little bit of contrast there to sort of balance that out. The bezel itself is a coin edge bezel, you know, again, similar to the Submariner. But the insert that they have here, the ceramic insert, has its own layout, which is very attractive, very appealing, especially when you notice that the dots on this are actually lumed in a different color than the rest of it. So you get a really cool look after dark when it starts glowing. That's when you can see the real difference there. But the bezel action is really fantastic. It's one of the highlights, I think, of this watch. Just very smooth, very tactile, no back play at all. It really feels great. It turns, you know, pretty easily. It doesn't feel like there's too much resistance, and each click is very clearly defined. It almost feels like there's kind of like a gear dropping into place. It's, you know, it's one of my favorite bezel actions that I've felt, and it definitely feels more premium than most other, you know, sub $500 watches. It is a 120 click unidirectional bezel. Case finishing is good all the way around. It has a very tool-like look with primarily brushed surfaces over most of the watch, aside from the polishing that you're getting on the sides of the watch. The bracelet itself is fully brushed, so again, you know, lots of kind of a matte finish over the whole thing. So it's a very rugged look to the watch, which is really kind of supported by that scratch-resistant finish coating that they've applied to it. Again, I've had this one for a couple weeks, and I do, I've taken it to the beach. I do outdoor shots with it, and a lot of times when I do outdoor shots, the case will get a little bit scuffed up when it, when I have to set it down on the ground or something to get a cool shot. But in this case, there hasn't really been any scratches at all on it. So I think that finish is actually really working, and I think that'll add, a lot of value to it, where, it's going to take a lot longer for the case and the bracelet especially to start getting scratched up, whereas a normal stainless steel watch and bracelet would start picking up scratches pretty quickly. The clasp is also really well done. It's just a great looking clasp, very solid feel, very sleek. You're getting some nice polished edges on the side of the clasp. Just nice, simple double security with a little flip up there and then 2 push buttons here to open it up. It operates very smoothly, clicks into place no problem. Nice milled clasp as well. And you are getting 6 micro adjusts on the clasp, so really cool there. You can get a really good fit to it. I was able to get it to fit on my wrist really well. Now I have a 7.5-inch wrist, so typically I gravitate more towards slightly larger watches, particularly with sports watches. I usually go for around 42, 43 millimeter. But lately I've really been kind of drawn towards smaller watches, and I really like this 40 millimeter size. I like the way it looks on my wrist. I think it fits really well, and I do find that smaller watches tend to be more comfortable. This one works great on either the supplied stainless steel bracelet, which thanks to the numerous micro adjusts, I was able to get a really good fit on that, and it's very comfortable on the bracelet. It's a really good bracelet. Or on the supplied Tropic rubber strap, which is also another great choice. So I really like that they kind of give you those 2 options. I feel like the Tropic rubber kind of takes it a step further away from the Submariner look. And so I kind of like that about it as well. I think either one is great options, but I think it's really made for that bracelet, especially with that having that kind of matching finishing and matching scratch resistant coating. That's just, I think, a great fit for it. The Lume on the Axios Ironclad is absolutely phenomenal. Now it's kind of getting into an entirely different category of this sort of extreme Lume and micro brands, and I have never had a watch that really competes on this level. So this was a real treat for me to get to test this one out. Needless to say, it completely blew away every other watch that I have tested so far, and I'm going to get it up in a comparison with some other watches in my collection later on. But this is the kind of Lume that really doesn't need to be charged or anything. You can just wear it normally, walk into a dark room, or walk out outdoors from a light room, and it will be completely ready to go and probably last you throughout the night without any problems. So to actually test this, I normally only do a 1-hour Lume test. I went ahead and increased this to 3.5 hours to kind of see what would happen. And again, I chose the brightest watches in my collection when it comes to Lume. I put it up against the Laco Casablanca, the Orient Star Sports Outdoors, a new watch I got from Merkur, which is surprisingly bright, and then you have the Axios Ironclad kind of in the middle there, followed by the Seiko Samurai and the Citizen Nighthawk, which consistently scores as highest on my hand brightness tests. Now for the first half hour of this test, the Axios did well. It was, kind of in the middle of the pack, but it's in the extended time lapse that this really takes place, because as you get into that 2 and 3 hour range, everything else begins to fade and become really difficult to read, whereas the Ironclad just keeps going. It's at the end of this test, it's the only one that is still easily visible at a glance, and it takes first place easily in both the hand brightness and the marker brightness category. So if Lume is a high priority for you, the Ironclad definitely delivers on that front. Okay, let's try and wrap this up a little bit and see what we've got. I think they're giving you great value for your money. I think the specifications that you're getting, again, this is basically everything that I could hope for at a watch in this price range. And then you combine that with this kind of really classic Submariner look. It's the kind of watch that can be, your only watch. This could be your great one watch collection. You're not going to find anything missing on it in the specs. I don't think that you would, really be wanting if you're, again, especially if you're more into affordable watches. And because it has that kind of classic Submariner look, it's a look that will go with almost anything. You can dress it up, you can dress it down. It's sort of a tried, proven, reliable look. But I do like that they have changed a little bit. There's not like a full-on Submariner homage where people are just going to automatically think, oh, you either, are wearing a Submariner, or you want to be wearing a Submariner, there's definitely some visual cues to kind of tip people off and to let people know this is not a Submariner. It's not trying to look exactly like one, but it definitely has its influences there. So I think it's a pretty good balance there. And overall, it's just a really great watch. And I think for this price, yeah, this could easily be like my only watch. This could be my day in, day out. You know, it's going to handle everything, do everything, go anywhere. Just a really great watch in that respect. But I think the watch does have a few drawbacks, a few things that maybe could have been improved, and so let's go ahead and talk through those. The only thing that I kind of would have liked to have seen in this watch that I think could have been improved would have been a clasp with a tool-free micro adjust system. Again, if you're really going to kind of go for that Rolex inspired thing, one of, I think, the best things that the Rolex has going for it is that glide lock system, is that sort of little flip out, you know, micro adjust thing where you can increase the length of the watch. This one does have 5 micro adjusts, but they're just standard micro adjusts, and it's just a normal clasp. At this price range, it's not unheard of to see some upgraded clasps that have some of those extra features in there. Something like that, I think, would have been, you know, kind of the last possible thing they could have included in this price range that's not here. But again, given everything else that they offer, I definitely don't think that it's lacking in this price range. I think this is, you know, what you would expect. Another very minor thing is that the indices do have a little bit of a greenish tinge in the daylight. Again, that's going to come because they use, you know, they prioritize the really powerful nighttime lume. But the expense of that is that you're not getting that pure black on white contrast that, you know, has a really cool look to it. I think that's something that I believe that the newer versions of the Submariner do a little bit better. And to, you know, to sometimes seeing that sort of greenish tinge on the black dial, to me is not perfect. Okay, it's still not a problem. You're still getting decent contrast, but that lume does come with the cost of it. It is not a pure white colored indices. They're very slightly greenish tinged, but again, that's a very minor thing, and it's something that I would definitely take to get the level of lume that they included in this. I think it's certainly a worthwhile trade-off. And then the final possible drawback, one that's kind of been hanging over the head of this thing through the whole thing, it is very heavily influenced by the Submariner. So if you do not like the look of the Submariner, or if you do not like the idea of having a watch that looks like a Submariner, whether it's an homage or heavily inspired by it, this might not be the design for you. But that's something that, you know, it's you either like it or you don't. Yeah, so for some people that might be a turn-off, but for a lot of other people, that's going to be one of the biggest draws to this watch. You could make the argument that, you know, maybe you would like to see them try something a little bit more original, a little bit more creative, and maybe Axios will do that next. But right now, they're really focused on this Ironclad. This is the second batch of it. They're just coming out with different colorways, and it is an incredibly well-made watch, very well spec'd, and just a, you know, really good all-around watch. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, definitely ask you would consider doing so. I focus on affordable watch collecting here, so I do reviews of watches that are kind of in that, you know, $500 or less price range. This one's poking a little bit above that, but also do different topics about affordable watch collecting and how to build a watch collection on a budget. And I do a once a month Watch of the Month Club where we talk about a certain kind of watch in a certain category. This month we're going to be taking a look a little bit later at chronograph watches under $500. So if you're interested in that, hit the subscribe button. But thanks again for watching. I will see you guys next time.